Hi, friends. Gene Valentino, and welcome to another episode of Gene Valentino's Grassroots Truthcast. As always, we've got interesting guests on each and every week, and we'd be remiss not to do a deeper dive, as loyal and as committed as we are to the merits of the Trump administration. Donald Trump, nonetheless, is held hostage to some of those around him. I hopefully fear that it wasn't as bad as his first term, where he had conspiring efforts underway behind his back, even within his cabinet. Instead, there seems to be a real hue and cry, a rallying of support for Donald Trump, almost to the other extreme. Everyone seems so loyal and committed to his cause. But we're going to pour a little water on it today and still be respectful of the Trump administration. With me is Marc Mitchell from the Rasmussen Reports. Hello, Marc. How you doing?
Great to be here. You can be respectful, but I might not be. I don't know. I've already said a lot of stuff that it puts me
No,
not on the Christmas card list. Let me tell you that.
well, you may not be on the Christmas card list, but I suspect you're still being viewed or watched by the Trump administration because what I have determined is they respect your opinion. And that's what we're going to get into, folks, right after this.
Hey, public opinion aficionados, it's Marc Mitchell, head pollster of Rasmussen Reports, and really happy to join Gene Valentino at the Grassroots Truthcast today. I support his podcast. Go check it out and subscribe while you're there.
Hi, friends. Gene Valentino. We've got to get on this herpes virus and attack it at its source. If you're tired of these cold sore breakouts caused by the herpes virus, you've got to discover this product I'm on board with. It's called Herplex, the natural homeopathic remedy that works on your body's defenses. Visit buyherplex.com/Gene. Do it today and save 25% on your first order by using the discount code GENE25. Throw that code in there and you got yourself a discount. Let's conquer herpes and cold sores together. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Grassroots Truthcast. You think I know the word by now. We've got a lot to cover with Marc Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports. Welcome, Marc. We were just talking in the breaks about how people are probably anxious to see some juice for the squeeze, huh? In this Trump administration, while many respect his initiative and the perils he's subjected himself and his family to, nonetheless, he's is a delivery issue, isn't there?
Uh, that's the understatement of the millennia. Remember, Trump won, who, recall, he was surrounded by DC scumbags and liars and grifters. And even Trump won throughout the first year, they got a lot accomplished and they were publishing lists of all the things that Trump did. Everybody remembers that Trump won is like, wow, we got this outsider in and all of a sudden, all this stuff happened. And objectively, there are no lists. Like I struggle to name accomplishments. You could
Well,
say what he focused his energy on. We had like Iran, the one big beautiful bill, some
the
overseas
border,
stuff, the
the
peace deal.
border, the border, the fentanyl issue, the economic incentives, and now a lot of rebates on different levels he's talking about. But was he not hamstrung? Let me answer, let me give you a comment and then you run with it.
Mhm.
The comment is Donald Trump has won the 440. He sprinted to the finish line and miraculously won, and he does so regularly. What makes him unbelievable is that he did it carrying a ball and chain. And the ball and chain were the encumbrances of the Democrats in the House and Senate that even though they're the minority, they claim to have some control, and that the Republicans, being more civil than the Democrats, allow for the Democrat injection of opinion and thought, and what it does is it often seems to gridlock the Republicans from getting anything done. Trump says, "I've had enough. I'm turbocharging this, even getting rebuked by the courts as to overreach of his authority, and he's trying to turn this mountain, move this mountain overnight. What say you?
He moved the mountain a heck of a lot better back in February and March than he
How's that?
has at any point since. Remember the way that there was this feeling of shock and awe? And a lot of this, remember, I'm a pollster, I'm a public opinion guy. So the objective truth doesn't matter. It's only what people think. And when I say Trump's accomplished nothing, where's the list? I'm literally saying he's not talking about a list of things that he accomplished, and he isn't talking about a list of things he's going to accomplish over the next year. Now, back in the beginning of his administration, it was scorched earth. You know what I mean? Like he was kicking people out of the country, he was busting down doors at USAID, he was going to audit the Fed and go tour Fort Knox, and everybody loved it. His approval rating was absolutely soaring, especially with 18 to 39-year-olds. They had a 60% approval rating the same week that search volume for Doge peaked. So these young people, you got to acknowledge that Trump's coalition in the fall of 24 was almost 40% independents and Democrats, many of them young people, many of them politically homeless, who were giving Republicans a chance for the very first time. And then they got all of their feelings validated because that election, in my opinion, was a referendum on institutional trust. And what happens? He opens up his presidency with a scorched earth attack on institutions. And then he got rid of Doge. And I think it happened because they wanted to pass spending bills that Elon thought were bad. And so DC won. And
Is
he gave away the biggest gift he ever gave the Republican Party, which was Doge.
Yeah, is it well, I'm glad you brought up Doge because is it his success or his performance or is it his messaging? You're the master of messaging and analyzing the transparency of polling. I'm concerned that maybe his message could have been more refined, but no one can argue his performance. What do you think?
No, I think the messaging was very clearly the best part of it, 100%. The optics are very important, and people do not want a comfortable Washington, D.C. This was again a referendum on institutional trust, and the reason I say that is that you can point to the Democrats and say socialism is bad, Kamala Harris is a bad candidate, and yet they were able to get almost half the country to vote for her. But when you ask, well, do you trust the federal government? Only 30% say yes. Do you trust Congress? Only 20% say good or excellent, right? And so people hate Washington, D.C. palpably. And they know it. It's because they're getting like screwed over royally. The music has stopped. The wealth concentration is really at all-time highs. Corporations have power over them. They tell me all this stuff in their polls. And nobody really talks about that because we know how D.C. operates. And so for them to come down there, everybody on the internet was laughing about like increases in searches for suicide helplines in Washington, D.C. on the internet and laughing about the fact that criminal defense attorney searches in
Yeah.
DC were higher than they've ever been. So people were very much wanted on the internet, Washington, DC burned to the ground, and they really don't care which party does it, which is puts us in a dangerous situation because I think all of these people are probably not going to give Republicans another chance. And Republicans, in my
Well, that's
opinion, have, yeah.
yeah, that's my concern. I mean, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If I'm giving you the bad news, that doesn't mean I'm the bank robber that stole your money. I mean, if you're going to be upset, how about all of us in the nation? Here's a poll I'd like to do someday. Find out how much responsibility individual voters take for whom they voted for.
They don't care. They don't care at all. Everybody
If
is
they,
aligned
how
against
do you
Washington,
blame?
D.C.
My problem is I'm not defending Trump, but how do you blame Trump for the things that came before him that he has not fixed yet, some of them, but that are in fact underway that he's working on in an unprecedented way? That's my concern.
Yeah, like Republicans don't really get three parts of the government very often in both houses of
Right.
Congress, and they don't want to hear excuses because they think we're in an existential crisis. I could just rattle off a just list of ridiculous things. 90% are concerned about political violence. 72% think we're living in a police state. 64% think the CIA sends talking points to the mainstream media. 60% says the media is the enemy of the people. Like I could go on and on. Weaponized political justice system. And so they don't want excuses. And for them to say, well, it's like hard or we have rules, that enrages them. And the thing is, quite frankly, that the Democrats have answers for this and the Republicans don't. The number one issue we have right now is that young people are upset that their future has been stolen from them and sent overseas. And they can't buy houses because of all the old people who have concentrated wealth. That's the
Okay,
number
now
one
hold
issue.
on. Okay, but if you look at where that came from, it was the breakdown in our educational system that preceded even the
No,
first.
no, not at all.
The institutions of education pulled pulled
Nope.
attention towards. Okay, no, why? Why not?
That is a very establishment response that shifts responsibility. And these people are sick of having responsibility shifted and being blamed. That is
So the
blaming them for
educational
being,
system has no role in this.
they kind of see it more like, well, this is the educational system that you trained us with, bro. Like that is really the viewpoint. Because the kind of arguments they're hearing is you just have to work harder and you have to like pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But the thing is that Republican and Democrat parties worked together. And I understand there was NAFTA and blah, blah, blah. But you also have to acknowledge that the Republican Party is the party of big business. It is bought and paid for by the Chamber of Commerce, Club for Growth, blah, blah, blah. You know, the Koch money, the Ken Griffin money. These are the forces behind the Republican Party. Those people really want amnesty and they like illegal immigration. And they also really like offshoring and globalization. And globalization and offshoring and the H-1B scam are all things that have hollowed out the middle class. This
Let's
isn't
come
about
back to that
illegal.
H-1B
Yeah.
scam. I think that's what we're talking about. But what about the equivalent? How about the George Soros money and the millions of dollars of NGOs that are funding the Democrats?
Yeah, I like agree it's a problem, but I think that the right pointing at the left and calling them boogeymen when the right like kind of loses on purpose, that's what people see. You know what I mean? Like they had a chance, they're going to lose, they have done nothing. They really have done nothing. And they're completely MIA. You have to understand this election. And again, people will say, oh, it's blue state off cycle election. It doesn't matter. What matters is that Chitterelli wasn't able to convert 700,000 Trump voters. And Mikey Sherrill was almost able to get the same number as Kamala Harris. So that is the wake up call is that crossover Democrats and independents in New Jersey did not care. They were let down by Republicans because, and I'll tell you, Donald Trump's approval rating didn't really crash all the way through the shutdown until the very end. People actually like wanted this shutdown, but they expected a plan. And what happened is Congress went MIA, was just being performative. Donald Trump flew all over the world, and everybody watched this coming snap defunding and did nothing about it. And then it was election day. And then what do people do? They look on the internet and this sort of Republican Party eating itself alive over Israel, which has nothing to do with the election that we had last week. And so I think people were really mad and punished them. And they don't. That's my point: is that not everybody knows what you and I know about NGOs and George Soros, but what they see with their eyes is that they're not being represented. And the Democrats have a very authentic message for this. The Democrats have already embraced their youth vote. Their youth vote wants UBI, democratic socialism, single payer health care. And if the Democrats get in, they're going to get it. And the Republicans are going to help them. That's what's going to happen. And so, at least from the young people's perspective, their problems get solved. Is it a bad solution? You and I know, yes, it's very bad. But the young people look at the Republicans and say, that's not a solution.
Folks, we're talking with Marc Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports. Great insight, different spin on the Trump administration's performance to date. What do you think of Mr. Epstein and the Epstein files? I won't say any more than that.
Yeah.
Let me just throw you a bone on that one.
Everybody called me a panicking, and I lost 3,000 followers, and I still screamed about it. I sent clips to the White House, and they didn't listen to me at all. And exactly what I predicted is exactly what happened. So Epstein is not the biggest issue, but it's got a lot of lore. People on the right have been talking about it for 10 years. People have been saying, oh, we're going to find out about Bill Clinton and Bill Gates. It's going to be great. We're going to release these things. Kash Patel helped run on this stuff, right? Like, let's not ignore that. And so when the Pam Bondi case closed, clip on Fox dropped, everybody had just gotten one big beautiful bill. They came back from July 4th weekend and they're like, okay, what's next, Republican Party? What do you got for me? What are you going to give me? Let's see the next accomplishment. Wait, case closed? And everybody's like, how can that be? How can that be? The case isn't closed. And so I went immediately into the field and I polled and I found that yes, only 16% of America thought the case was closed, and that like 60% of them thought that there are still wealthy and powerful people that sexually abuse minors and that they need to go to jail. And I sent that to the White House. And what happened the very next day? Trump attacked his followers. And so what they did was they didn't care about public opinion. They tried to brute force public opinion, and they don't even understand why it didn't work. And it's because people thought that this was a litmus test of future accountability. It's a representation of two-tier justice, which is the least popular thing in America. 95% of people don't like two-tier justice. Like, I mean, it's obvious, but it's like if you want to piss off Americans, you show them that the system is unfair. And so that's what this represented, and it represented Trump trying to brute force reality, and you can't brute force public opinion. So I tried to help him. I screened bloody murder. I thought it was the biggest mistake after Doge that he made, and they didn't listen. And I said, this is going to create an evergreen issue for the Democrats. They're going to run on this in 26. They're going to impeach Trump and have an Epstein commission. And I was 100%, I have all the clips, 100% right. And nobody listened to me. All you had to do was say, hey, we have an FBI. Let's investigate. And it would have gone away. It would have gone away. They could have focused on some other issue, and I don't even know what to tell. He permanently lost probably about 5% of independence with the Epstein thing. And
Do you think, switching slightly over to Doge and Elon Musk, um, Elon, in his just few weeks on that job, finds his own business, Tesla, under attack, and the dealerships and the cars. He finds, I remember being in a debate with someone saying his stock at $220 a share is going to climb. My opponent suggested it was going through down the drain. Well, sure enough, within 30 to 40 days later, the stock now, as you know, is over $300 a share, and it's
hmm,
growing like a weed. But more importantly, Elon presented, I think he opened Pandora's box and brought to the administration's attention some things even more egregious than were first thought. And
yeah.
all of a sudden, there's this concern I have as to how and why Doge is being shut down. Did they find too much under the covers, as they say?
Um, I have my theory, and I don't know, and I'll explain what I think the theory is. But people might not appreciate like how bad things are. Like with $1 trillion of just interest payments and 38
Yeah.
trillion in debt, and it's getting worse and worse. We're like, maybe two downgrades away from like complete insolvency. It'll shoot up to like 2 trillion in debt. And just to give you an example, if we had gone back in 1970 and capped Medicare and Medicaid at a percent of GDP, then our debt would only be like 18 trillion right now. It would be way, 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 way less. So just our promises to pay for people's health care have basically bankrupted us. And if you look at what we got for it, we spent all that money and we maybe extended lives a couple of years, but we did it by turning every single state almost top employer into healthcare industry. And now 19% of our GDP is healthcare. Probably like half of it comes from the government. So we basically nationalized an entire industry, and it's completely corporate capture. And so there's a lot that we could do within Medicare, being smart about let's clean up all the fraudulent payments. let's take a look at things like I asked Rock and I said, I had sleep apnea. I went to a sleep study. They told me I was going to die and I had to get a CPAP. Long story short, I didn't believe them. So I started sleeping on my side and my apnea went away. And so it's like, well, the health industry loves to create a problem and then solve it with an expensive chronic fix. If we
Yeah.
took just half the people who had CPAPs in America and were able to like get them a firmer mattress, change their pillow, whatever, it was $850 billion over 10 years, according to Grok. So it's like the guy that would have been able to identify those things is gone. And the reason I think he's gone is because the Republicans said, listen, Trump, here's how it's going to be. Debt ceiling's coming due. We'll be able to get a clean CR, but we have to pass all of your stuff through reconciliation. And they could have used nuclear option. I was calling for the nuclear option. Turns out we found out recently they only have 9 votes. They're really clinging to that. This is like fourth turning. I think that's a very like old traditional establishment Republican value that the youth don't care about at all. And so, in order to get the one big beautiful bill, Elon Musk was really upset that it was locking in spending. And I think he got a tap on the shoulder and said, "We need this one, bro." They've been writing that bill. The lobbyists have been writing that bill for 4 years. It's packed full of 3,000 pages of stuff. It's like, probably some favors in there that are due and payable and some receipts that have come due. And Washington, D.C. wanted its bill and they got rid of Doge. They literally had their own George Soros and they got rid of him because they wanted to pass a bill. And Trump was like, okay, we need this win. And then they didn't even get a bounce for the reconciliation bill. There was
Yeah,
no
I'm
public opinion
interested.
pickup. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to compare how crime was the initial strength of the platform for the Republicans. And during this reconciliation process, it pivoted by the Democrats to health care and health reform. And it's as if wasn't an issue anymore. All that
Yeah.
going on while National Guard starts to slip into blue cities and states around the nation. What's your take on the overall focus of healthcare in this nation as it compares to the way Donald Trump is maybe suggesting a solution? He should have one pending because he's now looks like he's getting the votes.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say that Democrats win on the issue of healthcare, especially with older people, and that's just because they want to vote for other people's money. And so my politics, again, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm independent and I want voters to get what they want. And then the follow-up to that is unless it's stupid. And so having an entire healthcare industry built with complete regulatory capture on other people's money is insane. And that's the Democrats' plan because they can plunder the treasury. And so the Republicans have to have an alternative of that, and they haven't been able to come up with one. The best they've come up with is they're going to convince America that they will repeal Obamacare, but they can't articulate what that means and how it can change. Now, what they could do is lay out a way in which they roll back regulatory capture, understand the spending, and push back on these costs in a way that's anti corporate. But they're not going to do it. And so I think if people think large corporations have too much power, it's like 70 to 20 couple. And the antitrust polling is off the chart. And we have all the right people. We have the best people we're going to have ever to challenge the regulatory healthcare state. And it would be brutal. It would reduce GDP. There would be a recession. A lot of people would lose their jobs, but it would also put more money back in people's pockets. And we're at a point where there's no easy answers. And I think that
Yeah.
actually, like Republicans and Trump were given a really big blank slate, a lot of leeway to do this. I'm telling you, like looking at the polling, Gen Z really would have probably appreciated it if Trump had just ignored those judges back in March. I don't think they really care because they don't care about the Constitution like you or I do. And they look at the left and they say, well, the left is ignoring the Constitution and the right treats it like a suicide pact. And neither are working out for me. And they don't know who to vote for. And they just want results, right? And so they are going to still, we are on track for them to be handed a hollowed out society. It has not changed. You don't hear any Republicans talking about wealth inequality measures, and that's how they should measure their success. They measure their success with the stock market. And the Democrats, measure their success with votes. So
Well, you know,
Uh,
votes. I hope they're all legitimate votes. That's the only comment I'd throw
no,
in.
yeah,
The fact of the matter is Trump's guy. We're recording this on Wednesday, November 12th, and tonight in the Donald Trump is hosting a bunch of elite business leaders from around the nation, bankers and financier experts. That you know, and when I liked him the most was when he was handing out fries at McDonald's. he was um, he was
yeah.
in touch with the
Where'd that guy
people, and I
go?
think that's what you were saying. I think that's what you were saying, and the people don't want to lose that guy. And on the other hand, if he can pull some strings with major financiers in the nation to steer business and therefore jobs and incentives, um, then the issues like the H-1B visa issue and other issues become less of an argumentative issue because we're relying more on our own talent in the United States again, which was a
Yeah.
topic we opened on. Before we go for a break, you want to comment on that?
I mean, just like think about what you just said. Like after the last 2 days where Donald Trump yelled at people for being concerned about affordability, conflated the economy with bringing down turkey prices, deigned to solve the housing crisis with a pro banker, pro housing industry, pro boomer, quite frankly, economic solution, and then defended big corporations on H 1B. After that string of events, he's going to meet with powerful and wealthy billionaires. Like maybe that should have been a secret meeting, like I'm just saying he's completely lost. Like they have lost the plot. All they had to do was smash the oligarchy, and he is the oligarchy. And so we're going to have the Democrat oligarchy. I don't know what to like. That's as a pollster, that's what I see out of it. He's not standing up for Americans, and he might talk about things with them where they lie to him and say this will help Americans. But you and I both know it's going to be like amnesty. It's going to be more H-1Bs because we need innovation. It's all with these sweet little lies that sound good to people in Washington, D.C. And
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm
like
sorry. I'm a little jaded about this, but
yeah. Well,
uh,
me too. I was jaded about being able to have your own doctor, right? Um,
yeah,
I mean, it's the I don't want while I'm anxious to be objective and neutral about the benefits and shortcomings of Donald Trump's administration, I'm cautious not to throw the bomb in his lap and just let it reside there when there were issues that preceded him. In fact, your methodology and your sense of analytics on these polls is what drew me to you. It's pretty unique and I consider insightful. Um, uh, but that doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. I see a guy trying to put the right structures in place so that economics of individual entrepreneurs like you and me can be on the front line with new business opportunities in the area of AI, a structure that works, the cryptocurrency, making sure that we're not screwed like Samuel Bankman Fried did, is now serving time in jail because of a lack of regulation over the crypto, neutralizing or cooling the excitement in that industry. I do believe there's a place for government to come in with some level of regulation and oversight, but not to impugn or impede
yeah,
what would be economic uh, prosperity and creative competition, the entrepreneurial spirit. I just, I just, I mean, the guy's drinking out of a fire hose. Um,
he's yeah,
before worry about how jaded people might feel about him being with certain corporate executives, how many have we forgotten how many events, his rallies around the nation with hundreds of thousands of people that was face to face and one on one. Now, I guess I could find
yeah,
some reason to be upset with the guy. I mean, I ran for Congress this past year. I took a shot at Matt Gates's seat in District 1 in Florida, and I came in second out of about 10 Republicans, but it's because Donald Trump supported my opponent. I guess I could feel I have a grudge towards the guy. I don't. He he was listening to
Yeah.
some he was listening to some people and not me. so
Yeah. Well,
I
again,
kind of understand firsthand what you're saying. It's just that I'm not well, let me put it to you
yeah,
this
I
way.
want his value system to
Think of
win.
what the alternative would have been.
Yeah, but the voters aren't thinking that way. That's the problem. They're looking at the alternative being like, well, maybe these people will do what they say. And I don't have allegiance to any party, but I have like 4 children and I don't want them drafted into a NATO war to clear away banker debt. And so I am completely unencumbered to say my mind as loudly as I think I need to when an error is being made. This isn't some like PR campaign I'm doing. I literally am screaming because he's making the worst mistakes right now. And if he doesn't fix it, he's cooked. And I'm looking at the clock. We got 356 days till the next election. If he loses that election, they're going to impeach him, and the Republicans are probably going to work with him. They're going to pack the courts. They're going to do Epstein Commission. They're going to do literally everything because I
Okay.
think they look at yeah.
No, Mr. Polster, based on what you just said, are you saying that the midterm election in 2026, he loses a majority in either the House or the
Oh, of
Senate?
course, 100%. And without
That is the
under,
beginning of the end for him.
yeah, of course, the writing's on the wall. The Republicans did nothing, just got repudiated, and are still doing nothing. There's no wake up call. They are literally they want to go back to old right, and they're going to win because they are in charge. DC is like occupied territory at this point. The voters should be mad. And I'll tell you, like all I'm not being histrionic. I'm saying that
Yeah.
measures of concerns about political violence are through the roof. People think a civil war is coming. 43% of them. They think that like we're on an unsustainable path. And they think that all of these politicians are lying to them. I have like 70% of America thinks that most politicians are using the system for ill-gotten gains. I don't
Oh,
know what
I
to tell
agree
you.
with you. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
well, that's
well,
where we're
here
at.
and what's obvious in your face though, NGOs or no NGOs controlling this nation, the fact is they're only the Republicans are getting shot and killed or attacked in pretty aggressive ways. I don't know any Democrat that's been shot other than John F. Kennedy, and I'm not sure he was shot by an American.
Let me rebut that with one point.
Please,
If I give $1 to the Democrats, 97% will be spent for their ideological causes. If I give $1 to Republicans, 50% will be stolen by grift, by consultant classes. And so it's like, you know what I mean? I know that because I talk to these people, and I don't think
you
the
don't think
public
that
knows.
money is being stolen on the Democrat side either to pay for all of these people at these
Yeah, but
different
like here's the thing.
uh, uh,
The
uh,
the
protests every
left,
week?
the amoral left is not going to be able to be beat with an amoral right. It's not going to work. Like iron needs to sharpen iron here, and it's clearly not. Like I've heard of all of the MAGA people all around the country who get shut out by the establishment Republicans. They get forced you got to use the establishment vendors. Oh, the vendors waste money on inefficient things. Then they run campaigns distancing themselves from Trump, even though Trump outperformed everybody, because our state's different and they're going to come after me in the press. Like just so much cowardice. I've just seen it over and over again. And then the money gets directed. People make connections with the NRCC. They get Trump's ear. The endorsement goes to the wrong person. The money goes to the wrong person. The person with ties to industry is the one that gets preferentially selected. It's an oligarchy, and Trump has to smash it because the left is going to steal it. And
The oligarchy he's accused of being part of, right?
he looks like he is. I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
saying when the kids cannot the median homebuyer first time homebuyer age is now 40 years old, which
Yeah.
means average person graduating from college has to work 18 years before they can get a house. And Trump's solution was pay interest for 50 years, bro. Like that's the oligarchy. It is. And again, Bill Pulte might be a really nice guy, but he's getting laughed at online. They're making jokes about leasing turkeys for Thanksgiving. I mean, it's like
Okay. Catch your breath, grab a
Yeah.
sip. I'm going to sip my coffee too, folks. This is a great conversation with Marc Mitchell, the Rasmussen Reports. He's up in New York right now, and he's been contributing on other major podcasts and networks. And we're going to have him back as well if I can get him. He's a nice guy that has an edge and a different opinion, but it is insightful and it's based on fact and reason. And that's what I like most about Marc Mitchell. Let's have more with Marc Mitchell right after this. Hi, friends. Gene Valentino. I recently had the chance to sit with Ashley Leopard. Ashley's the real deal. A United States Coast Guard helicopter pilot, a recipient of the Air Medal, and a true American hero. Her first book, The Hurricane Within, was an award winning document and now shows she's back with volume number 2 called Beyond the Storm. Ashley's courage, faith, and strength of character will inspire you. Visit her website and get the latest updates on her new book and your chance to receive and win a free autographed copy. Check out the QR code down in the corner as well. Thanks for joining us. Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Gene Valentino's Grassroots Truthcast. I'm here with Marc Mitchell from the Rasmussen Group. And boy, he's got my attention today on some of the issues facing us. While many of us on the far right seem to be enthralled with Donald Trump's performance, and I might think that somewhere in the back there, Mr. Marc Mitchell thinks a lot of Donald Trump too. But really, what I do think is he's bringing to the table, hey guys, wake up because we're about to lose it if you don't clean house here and fix
Yeah.
it. Um, for example, tonight he's going to be with a bunch of billionaires and major national financial institution. Is that a flaw that he's putting that on after working so hard with so many people at the grassroots level? Or is that a benefit, Mark, that he's trying to stimulate bigger policy positions for the American economy through Scott Bessent?
Yeah.
I'm a CEO of a few companies, and I know there's policy positions and then there's grassroots strategy. But you got to have the policy position first to send the ball moving down the right side of the hill.
Sure. And I would say, like, the modern political environment has no idea how different things have gotten just in the last 2 years. Because remember, we've only had a free Twitter for like 2.5 years now. And what you can see is that it's like, okay, Twitter's not the real world, but the Twitter narrative is a real discussion. There's actually good faith people like trying to work out logically the right answer to things. And if they find a wrong answer or inauthenticity or lying, they will brutally, brutally attack it. And just, like 3, 4 years ago, Twitter was still like a CIA sock puppet, basically, right? So now what do you see is like, well, all of a sudden Chuck Schumer gets completely eaten alive by radical Democrats who can call him out now. People like Mark Levin get radically, like completely eaten alive by the radical right because they're out of touch and don't understand. And so it's very important that whoever is leading us is plugged into this national dialogue. And it's quite clearly obvious that Donald Trump is not, because he's getting brutally made fun of right now in a way that, in my opinion, is going to result in even worse numbers. He's -9 net approval today. It's probably going to drop. And he's probably going to lose a lot of core people, because I'm getting texts from people who are like burning their MAGA hats, even though they supported this guy for 10 years. And so the response is like message control, right? Like, let's be very deliberate about what gets put out there. And in order to do that, you have to understand like what people's major considerations are. It doesn't mean you can't meet with billionaires. Maybe just do it in secret and not put it all over the press. You know what I mean? Like, maybe don't have an interview where you just go in and freeball it and you completely embarrass yourself. And so if I were Trump, what I would be
But
doing,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Yeah, no,
Well,
I mean,
I wanted to interrupt to only to say that catches the attention and people are offended by that. When you had a previous president using an auto pen system hundreds of times by a deliberate staff, allegedly, to authorize things that our president didn't even know about, allegedly. And now that gets a pass. And we're talking about how Donald Trump's spending his time trying to
Yeah.
put some bigger issues in motion.
I'm telling him how to win, and people don't care that Biden did that anymore unless you're going to
They
arrest
don't
the
care
people
how
he
they don't care. I mean, is there
unless
no criminal wrongdoing that, well, they don't care anymore, but we don't have all the evidence
no,
placed
no, time
because
out.
it was, well, when the evidence comes out, when do the prosecutions and indictments start?
That's what I'm saying is they don't care unless you arrest people because they assume that politicians are corrupt now. That's just the basic state of things. So if you're saying, well, that guy was super corrupt, then they're like, okay, well, why didn't you arrest him? And so that doesn't really work. Now, I think if they arrested people that were doing that, it would be awesome optics, and the youth would really love it, especially because they're the ones following the auto pen scandal the closest. But since that's not happening, what I would do is I would say, all right, if Trump's going to do some publicity stunts, go to the American rancher, Meriwether Farms, who employs only Americans and makes American beef. And all of a sudden, our DOJ is going after antitrust in the meatpacking industry. Or
Uh,
go to the farm that now is employing Americans who are coming out of high school with no jobs and they don't have to go to the college industry anymore. And so we don't need Chinese CCP members to support our college industry because we deported people. Like that would be a really good one too. Or, you could put out a weekly roundup of here's who got fired in the FBI today. You know what I mean? Like, why aren't we not doing that? And they haven't. It's like Kash Patel is all over the internet now because of the allegations against his girlfriend and he's suing, and they haven't fired people who raided Mar-a-Lago. Like, how does this happen? And so they either need to do stuff or at least put out optics that show that they intend to. But when he comes out and says, no, don't talk to me about affordability, and that's the only optics for a week, then it's like, we're cooked. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
yeah.
And I don't know who's running things, but they need a shakeup immediately. And they better have some young people in there. They're getting
Okay.
destroyed.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the last 5 to 8 minutes we have a rapid fire. Let me hit you with some questions in and out.
Okay.
What's the Rasmussen Reports polling goes on constantly, I know.
hmm
What's one of your hot topics in the polls that are coming out, that and what you think it will trend? Where will it head?
Well, I think Donald Trump's probably going to kick around at like a -5 to a -10 approval rating. And the other thing that has happened is that Right Direction was setting records. We had the highest Right Direction polling we've ever had. Once 50%, which is like unbelievable. And then we had 37 weeks straight of Right Direction polling above 40. Well, 2 weeks ago, it went below 40. Wouldn't you know it, right before the election. And really, what we've been digging into is this idea of like economic populism and that the economy is not fair to young people. And has Trump administration been doing enough to make the economy better for young people? And I don't care what he's done, but I asked America and they said no. 18 to 29-year-olds, only 20% of them said yes. 69% of them said no. And so let's
Well,
acknowledge,
here's where you
yeah,
get me. You're giving me those numbers on the very day the Dow Jones Industrials have hit an all-time high.
that's not the
And that
economy.
doesn't and that's not and that doesn't impact Susie and Joe Smith down in the corner trying to pay their light bill this week. I get it.
Exactly. In fact, Trump uses it as an excuse to ignore them when it's really the
Well, what
measure
do you
that the
mean by
elites
that?
use.
I don't find him to be. I know Joe Biden had a tone of ignoring people and insulting people, and in a way that Trump did not. The reality is, I've never seen a guy give his salary and put up a ton of money on this new wing on the White House that no one cares to compare to what Biden's antics were. I mean,
Yeah.
this is what's driving me
But
crazy,
they didn't
Mark.
arrest Biden. They didn't arrest Biden. And what's
Of
going to
course they
happen is
didn't.
when,
The fix was
okay,
in for Trump.
I know what I'm just telling you, when the Democrats take control of the 120th Congress, they are probably going to go after Trump and his orbit for enriching themselves at the expense of the taxpayer. And I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just telling you that's what they're going to do, right? We both know it. And so Trump isn't doing that to them. And he unfortunately talks a lot about the stock market. And the stock market, the people who care about the stock market are people with portfolios, overwhelmingly older Republicans, people who are billionaires, right? And very few other people. And so when people literally can't buy houses, you have to work 18 years to maybe buy a house, and people aren't procreating and finding partners because they have to work, then they don't
Well,
want
I
to hear
give you
about the
that.
stock market. They want the stock market to crash to screw over the billionaires. And Trump is like, oh, the stock market's great. There is an economic populism wave. Even Republicans want economic populism. And Trump has to win by being the pragmatic voice of economic populism. You can't do that without measuring things like first time homebuyer age going down, marriage is going up,
My
first time
understanding for
job incomes going up. Like you can't, and they're not measuring those things. He should be
well,
talking. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I keep interrupting because I think there's a delay. I apologize. The Scott Bessent, Secretary of Treasury, I get the sense from him that the interest rates going up uh, is um, is a patch on the tire, or I should say, this 50-year amortization of a mortgage is a patch on the tire to transition back to making home purchasing more affordable for individuals. I think it's crazy. I mean, I paid off my mortgage because I worked twice as hard. I worked very hard to make my money, and I paid off my mortgage. I have no mortgage, but that doesn't mean everyone can do that. So mortgages are in place to help those who really can't do it totally
Yeah,
on their own. And I
it's not
think
good enough.
it's
It's
yeah. Yeah, so okay, let me rapid fire you. What's the prediction for the midterm elections?
Well, I haven't pulled generic ballot since the election, but the Real Clear Politics aggregate is Democrats up 4.5. Seems like Republicans picked their redistricting fight and aren't going to win it. And they are running on literally no work products. They're not even talking about their legislative agenda for the next year. And they're probably not going to make very many risque votes over the next, 12 months either. And so I suspect that you're going to walk into election day with Democrats plus 8 or 9, and it's probably going to be a really big blue wave. And it
Can you
doesn't
run
have
a
to be
can,
that.
yeah, can you run a poll on term limits? What's the nation feel about term limits for Congress?
Uh, I forget. I think it's like, 60, 70% probably is my guess. I think term limits is probably like score is less important than getting rid of Citizen United or stuff like that, like getting the money out. But the voters don't know that stuff. And I also think they assume that it doesn't matter. But we had like open criminality in the Biden administration, like naked open criminality. And now the right
What do you mean?
owns,
What do you mean? I think I know what you mean, but for the public, what do you mean?
oh, laptop to hell, cocaine in the White House, laptop from hell, cocaine in the White House. We had like numbers of like almost 60% of people like thought that Joe Biden was taking money from China, and half of
Not to
America
mention
wanted him
Ukraine.
impeached. Sure. Like 75% of Republicans wanted Joe Biden impeached going all the way back to 2022, and MTG is the only one that even tried. So it's like complete Washington D.C. capture by the Republican Party is the only way I can assume that most people are going to feel in a very like subtextual way. And people say, "Oh, look at the Democrat Party. People hate the Democrat Party." Well, no, folks are using fake polls. When I poll on people, they're pretty equal. They are pretty equal about whether they like the Republican or Democrat Party. But when you have numbers like the congressional ratings of the Republican Congress going into this election day among independents, 3% excellent, 6% good. And Republicans did that to themselves. And they are going to lose elections because people expect results now. They
There's no
literally,
question.
they're
Yeah,
giving
go
up on
ahead.
capitalism. People are giving up on capitalism and conservatism because Republicans suck. That's just what's happening. We're going to, and you can tell me, well, capitalism's the best principle, and they're going to say, well, it hasn't worked for me, and we
Well, let
both
me
know
change
that
your
it's not
comment
real
just a
capitalism.
smidgen.
Yeah.
How about Republican leadership sucks And I think that's what it was under the Mitch McConnell era. That's why I go back to term limits. Term limits wouldn't have Mitch McConnell or Chuck Schumer around not to mention Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, and Adam Schiff, and two or three others. You'd have a more inexperienced. Admittedly, we open ourselves up to neophytes, but it certainly changes the complexion and the status quo of how we look at legislating in the United States Congress.
Let let me push back on one thing,
Sure.
and this is my unique vantage point. We're probably the cheapest pollster in the industry, and certainly the most accurate. You can see what happened in the fall. Definitely the most independent because I go scorched earth on both sides. And the biggest footprint, media footprint, if people polled with us, we could do a lot of media reach. We have a 620,000 Twitter profile, right? And we poll on everything, especially the things people care about. Like you can probably just tell from what we've talked about that I have a lot of unique research that would be very valuable to people in the Republican Party, right? You know how many Republican legislators or offices came to me in the last 4 years?
Not a clue.
Two.
Oh,
They don't,
really?
but they don't buy my subscription. They don't ask me to run questions. They don't care. They don't want to know. They don't want to know what voters think. The two were like Eric Schmidt and I think Ron Johnson. And one was about election integrity, and the other one was, I think, asking about vaccine stuff. And then they're like, oh, you have all this abortion stuff? I'm like, yeah, you guys are really bad at abortion messaging. I have all this stuff. And I sent it to them, and like, it's so clear the path forward on abortion, how to message it, and they don't want to win because they probably get bought off by the abortion industry. I'm sorry, it's something like that. And in fact, you know who is the only person on the Republican Party that has messaged effectively on abortion, in my opinion?
Mm.
Meaning, like they used a message to get an outcome. It's when Ron DeSantis's paid followers were trying to undermine Trump so Ron could win the GOP primary. They literally tried to blow up Trump's support by saying Trump wasn't pro-life enough. That's the only time anybody used
Wow.
abortion. So they don't care about the issue at all. They just absolutely don't. And so it's not Republican leadership, it's the entire Republican Party. And that's not even talking about the donor harvesting that's going on all the way up and down, how they push out MAGA candidates. And I'll just give you an example. Like, look at a place like Colorado, right? And it's like, well, it's blue and they're not going to win, but maybe in 10 or 20 years, they could move the state more Republican, right? And acknowledge that Trump has one of the more popular platforms: drain the swamp, get rid of legal aliens, focus on the middle class. Like, it's stuff that we can all agree is effective. So there's a MAGA candidate they paid for me to poll. And what I found is that because of their MAGA situation, they would 100% win the primary. They would, people don't want a traditional Republican. They want a MAGA Republican. Okay. And then I was like, okay, here it is. You're going to lose the general, but you will win the primary. What is it? Well, I can't get to the Trump team. They're not going to give me an endorsement. The RGA doesn't want to talk to me. The NRSC is going to cut me out. They're throwing money they're throwing money to my establishment opponent. And so the establishment is going to run terrible Republican candidates in a state and lose even worse. So, what's the America First plan to lose in states that are close so that you can at least explain the value of your positions in a way over time? So there's none. There is not a single dollar in this country being spent to move the Overton window to the right and fight back against leftism. There's just none at all, because there's no personal interest in it. They can't harvest that money. They don't care what voters think. And so I want them to win. I do
Yeah.
not want to be a
Well, I do.
communist.
I
And yeah,
if they don't push back, I agree with you there. And the Overton window is getting back to the normalcy of Republican conservatives on the
it's no, it's not.
Republican
It's
side.
not at all. Not at all.
But no, and the
100% not
problem
at
is
all.
they're going to try to swing further right to the far left element. The Overton window says that there's something acceptable or not as egregious in the middle, which is a
Yeah.
right. It's the same thing on the left side. The extremists of the left are going to be neutralized possibly by something that you and I would
Mm.
consider far right a few years, far left a few years ago, but now seems to be the normalcy on the left side as well.
You see extreme positions accepted ubiquitously on the left, and you see extreme positions bottled up on the right. Like that's what happens. And the reason the Overton window is moving left on almost every issue, you got to look issue by issue, is because there's no equal and opposite force. And so when the Democrats say, okay, from a border perspective, we're just going to open it up and flood the country, the right position can't be no. It has to be something equal and oppositely extreme. It needs to be something like, well, we need to root out every illegal immigration immigrant and deport them, and then salt the earth. Like I don't even know what it is. It's like maybe like actually like denaturalize people. And you don't hear the word denaturalization, you get called a xenophobe. But that's how you keep the Overton window in place. You have to have an opposite, right? And so there is no opposite on the right. And so on all these things, the Overton window is moving left. And this one might surprise you, even on LGBT stuff, the Overton window is moving left. And it's because the left still overwhelmingly supports it. Now, in the public discourse, you're allowed to make fun of them again. And so at least organically, there's somebody pushing back. But what's happening is that more and more people are into the trans stuff still, even though Bud Light got boycotted. And when the right looks at that, because it's traditional, because it's still got sort of this like boomer value kind of thing, they'll look at that and they'll say, you know what? I'm going to ban that. And that is their alternative, right? So the Overton window might be checked, but the new problem, the warfare they don't understand, is that the Zoomers are going to look at that banning LGBT stuff, and they're going to say, "Well, so what? I don't like. Why would you do that? Just fix my economy." And so, if they're like the Republicans are so hopelessly outmatched and unable to understand the shifting political
Outmatched or
landscape,
outfunded?
not outfunded. Republicans raise a ton of money. Now, I will say, we need to. So,
One point
Act Blue.
$1.5 billion for Kamala's campaign.
Yeah, well, when you add the Act Blue money, I think it's like three. So they do have Act Blue, but then you look at the RNC and DNC war chests. The RNC war chest is bigger by a lot. So I think it's like, why haven't we arrested Act Blue people? You know what's weird is that we're going to hand them the opportunity to come at Win Red in a year when we didn't do
Yep.
anything about Act Blue. So you know what I mean? It's like, but if the Republican Party stood for what people wanted to, they would win small dollar donations. Who wins the small dollar donations? Bernie Sanders. Why is it? He's a populist. If the Republicans were pragmatic populists, they would win. And pragmatic populism, it would be a return to free market capitalism. Do you know what capitalism is? It's an independent government that is brutal to corporatists in order to look out for the needs of the people. That means just making sure they don't do anti-competitive stuff. Well, we don't have that. We either have more regulations that the left uses as a shakedown, or we have less regulations that we have that allow corporatists and corporate welfare queens to run wild. Well, how about like the right regulations that say, no, like maybe 70% of our business in retail should not be Amazon selling Chinese crap. And nobody's going to do that because they want Jeff Bezos' money. Like it's, and the right has to be the ones that say, you know what? Maybe it's not right to be the party of Jeff Bezos.
Well, they were the party, they were the grouping, including Zuckerberg and Gates and the rest of them, that stood strong behind Democratic initiatives
Yeah.
and Biden when it was thrown down their throat. It wasn't
Yeah.
Republicans they went for, and now they've got their tail between their legs and they're coming back into the White House hoping to befriend Donald Trump under
And
this
he
new
hugged them. Like, you know what I mean? Like he hugged them. Oh, great. We have
Oh
the
my God.
billionaires now. That's,
He,
you
they
know,
just what's the word? They canceled you from being on social media, and now they're
yeah.
your new best friend.
You
Oh
see what I
God. Hey,
mean? It's like I
yeah.
have a little bit of gallows humor, but we are in a pretty bleak spot. Like,
Hey folks, we're with Marc Mitchell, Rasmussen Reports. And Mark, we could go on another hour, and out of respect for your time, I want to invite you back or come on with you at some other point in the future. Mark, folks,
yeah,
is a
cool.
very renowned pollster. Keep your eye on him this winter, the spring of 2026, and the fall of 2026 for the midterm elections. He will be on national news reporting on some of the things he was talking
Yeah.
about today. We'll see how those results fare. We've covered a lot of ground from Epstein to finance in the administration to some of the politics. And in the last 60 seconds, Mark, would you like to give us a recap of what's hot for you and give us your contact information, that is your website and where we can subscribe?
Yeah, 100%. So there's so much going on, but this is like the pivotal moment in MAGA. And so people need to watch Trump very closely and what his numbers do and how he responds to. I think he's getting a lot of forceful feedback right now. I went scorched earth on InfoWars right before this, and I'm pretty sure that Alex Jones is meeting with the president tomorrow. So hopefully that'll work. If you're not on Twitter, though, you have to get on Twitter. It's probably the most important thing for the Republic right now. We need a lot of people on there pushing on the boulder. And by that, I don't mean like standing in ranks behind Donald Trump when he makes mistakes, but like understanding the actual national discussion and being a part of it. And if you want to start, you can at least start with my account at Honest Pollster, and just engage, but like use your head, use logic, don't use like histrionic logical fallacies, and you'll have a good time on me. I'll debate people with, and then Rasmussen underscore poll is the main account. We have a YouTube channel, Rasmussen underscore poll as well. And depending on when this comes out, I'm going to have a war room interview coming up soon too. So more making winning more hearts and minds for President Donald Trump.
Yeah, I noticed you're on with Steve Bannon a few times as well. Well, um, we're talking to a guy who uh, he challenges the polling industry status quo, and that's why he's on today. This narrative is not to pile on to any one issue, but to make sure we as Americans, we as voters, take a hard look at all sides of the issue. If you are called to provide polling data and you recognize the source, please give it. Well, your polls will be published where, Mark? On your website as well?
Yeah, RasmussenReports.com. You can tell that I'm not funded by either party. And so we are literally 100% advertiser and subscriber focused. And this is, again, this is not my personal, like, longtime views. Like, this isn't, I'm not a Trump basher. I'm a person that is trying to say what's happening so that there can be feedback and a response. And when Trump's doing well, I'm like, look at this. He did well. His numbers are record breaking. Isn't it great? He is not doing well right now. So RasmussenReports.com, there's like a reader subscription, $5 a month if you want to help us out. That would be well appreciated.
And if you miss, if for any reason you're not getting through, contact me at grassrootstruthcast.com. Subscribe on our site as well to these weekly podcasts and comment on what you've just watched. And any information you have or questions or concerns, shoot them to me regardless. I'll make sure Mark gets them from you. I'll forward them to him. And Mark, thank you so much for joining us here today. What a treat. We've had a chance to cover a lot of ground. Kind of tells me we got a lot more to cover, but that's enough
Sure.
for one. Well, that's enough over one cup of coffee. I'm gonna
Yeah, it's
kick
empty.
back and see how all the elitists are doing tonight after Donald Trump's meeting. And um, any parting thought?
Yeah, get on Twitter and watch everybody make fun of it. I mean, just watch. That's the most predictable thing in the world.
Thanks for joining us, Marc Mitchell.
Great to be here.
Best to you, and we look forward to having you back. And thank you, everybody, for another episode of Gene Valentino's Grassroots Truthcast. Subscribe and see you soon. Hi, friends. Gene Valentino. We've got to get on this herpes virus and attack it at its source. If you're tired of these cold sore breakouts caused by the herpes virus, you've got to discover this product I'm on board with. It's called Herplex, the natural homeopathic remedy that works on your body's defenses. Visit buyherplex.com/gene Do it today and save 25% on your first order by using the discount code GENE25. Do that. Throw that code in there and you got yourself a discount. Let's conquer herpes and cold sores together.